Now we're ready to add the finish to the neckline, and we will add an edge like this with a welt and some fringe. The fringe is optional, but for both options, for either with or without fringe, we'll have to start by picking up stitches. For the cuffs and hem, we already had stitches on the needle, so we could just continue working those, and we placed a lifeline to indicate where we'll then pick up stitches for the 3 needle bind off to join this around that like that. And but in order for us to be able to do the same around the neck, we'll be picking up the stitches along the neckline with the help of a contrasting waste yarn, which we'll use to trap and mark the strands that we'll be picking up later. So here's my working yarn, and here's a piece of leftover yarn that's in a different color, and we'll start picking up the stitches some width away. So it's specified in the pattern how many stitches to skip here. It should be the same number of stitches that you cast on for the for each front here that overlaps and makes the button band area, so to speak. But the reason we leave that unpicked, if I can say that, is because we want the finishing edge here to be nice and rounded. We don't want there to be any ugly joins, so we'll work this as part of the entirety, as part of the entire length when we do the front opening finish, and then we'll join them here in the corner where it will be less visible, and it will also be easier to join when they meet at the same level and not perpendicular to each other. So that's the reason for beginning here in the corner. And the pattern says to pick up one along the edge here, along the vertical pickup, we need to pick up 1 stitch for every 2 rows, and that will just coincide with these purl bumps. Quite an easy way to see. It also says to pick up between the first and the second stitch, so we were knitting in this direction, so we can easily see that the second stitch column is this one. And if you can follow, this is the second stitch column, if you follow that leg and where it comes out, it will be the purl bump that when we come from the bottom to top will be facing upwards, the opposite of the actual stitches, because we were knitting top down. So I just need to find the first one of these upwards facing purl bumps here that I can pick up, and it should coincide with this line here. And yeah, I will use the working yarn to knit into that picked up thing. And then behind the work, I'll twist the working yarn with the waste yarn. If you've done stranded color work, that's how you would trap a long float. And pick up the next purl bump, and then in the next time I'll twist it in the opposite direction so my yarns don't get tangled. And pick up the next purl bump. Again, I will pick it up from under, and the next time from over. If you pick up twice, if you twist in the same direction twice, nothing bad's gonna happen. You'll still will have done the job. It'll just make your yarns a little bit more tangled, but that's not a big deal. You can see if you're doing it right. If behind the work you can see, well, it's hard to see because they're not that contrasting for me in this case, but are these little strands in the working yarn that are running across this waste yarn here, and we'll be using that to figure out where we need to pick up stitches when we go to join the edge with the 3 needle bind off. And we continue picking up 1 stitch for each row all the way along here to the top, and when we get to the back, which starts by these 3 knit stitches, we will pick up 1 stitch for each cast on stitch. So we'll be putting the needle through the actual stitch, not the legs, not the cast on legs of, not the legs of the loop below the stitches, but actually through the stitch. Obviously, if you make a big hole, then you have to fix that right away because it won't disappear, and you can make an exception there and pick another strand to put your needle through. But generally speaking, to pick up exactly the number of stitches that is needed, it's best to go through, find the shape of the stitch and go through it there, and finish with exactly the same approach that we took for the right front, also here for the left front. You'll have to find the second stitch column. It will be coinciding with the direction of knitting, and then you'll stop in this corner here, leaving this width unpicked for when we do the front opening finish.